All right, welcome to the bracket episode 156. Today we are debating what I think is going to be kind of a hot button topic. Who is the best stand-up comedian? This is an all New York episode. The Chicago boys have been like super wrapped up with a bunch of different shit. So we have Klemmer, we have Francis, myself, Glenny Balls, Robbie Fox, and Nate. Big New York crew. And I think we jump straight into it.
I will say the dynamics here are awesome because Francis, comedian, Klemmer, very old,
Rough.
Glenny Balls and Robbie, very young. Me, just a fan of comedy, and you, I guess, the same as me. But I think we have different tastes, so
yeah,
should be cool.
We do. We actually have I feel like when we were talking about some of the comedians earlier, like we have very different comedic tastes, which is good for this kid in this sense. And Glenny Balls is like Theo Von's best friend.
Correct.
Also helps here too.
I haven't talked to Theo in a while. I love you, Theo.
Like a few weeks. Yeah.
I love Theo.
Yeah.
A few hours.
You fly private with him every other week.
I've never flown private with Theo. I wish I'd flown private with Theo.
But before we get to that, let's get to our first sponsor of the day. New one that I actually like. I want him to actually send me some shit. Pepper Palace, known for small batch, handcrafted, all natural creations. Pepper Palace brings you the best in hot sauces, barbecue sauces, seasonings, wing sauces, salsas, and more. Over 90 retail locations where you can try before you buy with a free sample every day. From fiery heat seekers to flavor explorers, Pepper Palace covers everyone's palate with sauces and seasonings from wild to mild. Visit a store near you or shop online to discover your next favorite sauce. Save 20% on your next order by using code BRACKET. I'm a big sauce guy. I love sauces.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Oh my God, nothing.
Oh yeah, Glenny is like the number one sauce.
Glenny has a sauce bag on his
I've been
desk.
saying for years.
He does.
I do with my sauce bag. I've been saying for years I want to do a sauce cookbook.
Yeah, you should absolutely.
Just sauces.
Sauce is great. Marty believes there's
Just
sauces
sauces.
under the earth.
Oh, there's sauces to be discovered.
Yeah.
There's no
He
doubt.
believes they live under the earth, these sauces.
That is just him being kind of dumb, but yeah,
Oh.
I mean, there might be. Anyway,
It's a nice thing to think about.
this is like a damn near impossible one to kind of seed because it's so subjective.
Yes.
But I did the best I could. I got it vetted by a few people that not on this panel, so hopefully that kind of helps a little bit here. And our first matchup of the day is the number 12 seed, Mitch Hedberg. This is one where I don't know. Are we all semi-familiar? Because and for the sake of this episode, I'm going to play some clips if we're
Probably
not
the only one
all
old enough to have seen Mitch Hedberg in person. Like,
actually live.
yes.
When is it?
I
live?
I told you my Mitch Hedberg story. We had tickets. It was Stephen Lynch, who I don't know if people know who he is. He was like he played very graphic. I don't even know, like over the top songs on piano. He was opening for Mitch Hedberg in DC. We had a snowstorm that day. They canceled it, rebooked it, and he died between the time that I was supposed to see him in the rebook. Very sad. Very sad.
But he is very funny. It
Gotta
was
bring
very
the
funny.
vibes down, Nate. Jesus
It's
Christ.
it's my Mitch Hedberg story.
Are we all familiar?
Bad one.
Are we all-
Hedberg's, very funny.
yeah, we're all familiar enough with him.
Yeah.
And he's going against number 5 seed, one of the all-time greats, Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh,
Rodney Dangerfield, just one of the all-time funniest guys. Just so quick, so like his delivery is so unique.
and this is just based on their stand-up, not like movies
based on
and stuff.
we're trying to in this case try and stick it only to stand-up, and that kind of made seeding this hard too, because some guys are more like general entertainers versus stand-up guys. You know what I mean? Like not every comedian is a great stand-up, or vice versa. But in this case, I mean, Rodney Dangerfield, one of the great all-time stand-up guys, and also I think I like his movies. I feel like you were.
I love his movies. I mean, Back to School is hysterical. Caddyshack. I mean, he's some really great stuff in
Good
Rodney.
ones. So Mitch Hedberg versus Rodney Dangerfield. Let's start with Nate.
Taking Mitch Hedberg, one of my all-time top 5 comedians. If I don't, you said his name as if people wouldn't know him. I'd be surprised if people didn't. Maybe just from like everything is gifable that he ever said. Yeah, I feel like he's been dead for maybe 20 years now. I think he's still relevant as a comedian. I love him. I'm a little mad that he's only at 12.
Mitch Hedberg.
Easy Mitch Hedberg for me. I think I missed out on Rodney Dangerfield completely. Obviously, like Caddyshack's very funny and stuff, but as like a comedian, I think Mitch Hedberg has 20 bits I could rattle off of the top of my head. Rodney Dangerfield, he gets no respect here, but
I mean, you literally are.
that's the only thing that's the only thing I could name from him, really.
Glenny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Hedberg guy. I definitely cannot name 20 bits by him. I feel like he's considered, like Nate was saying, you'd be crazy to not know Mitch Hedberg. I think he's way more of like you have to be a real stand-up comic fan to like know a lot of his bits. But I'm a Dangerfield guy. Like, I mean, he's got the vibe. I love saying to people, I don't get no respect.
When Hedberg said that a duck's opinion of him is reflective on if he has bread or not, I thought that was like the funniest thing I ever heard in my life. It still is.
Yeah, no, Dangerfield for me. I like Rodney a lot.
I'm with Glenny. Something about Dangerfield that just tickles my fancy.
He's a vibe guy.
He's a big time vibe guy.
He's a guy. He's a guy. Obviously, he can't walk into this room right now, as it's passed on, as has Hedberg. Yeah. But it's more just like he seems like almost like a James Gandolfini to me, where he had like an aura around him.
Yeah. Everyone that I know that's ever had told stories about him, they're all like, "Oh, he was the absolute best. He come and light up a room."
Have you heard the Eddie Murphy story about him?
I don't think. Oh wait, where he's like, "Oh, who knew?"
I think I think like Dan Soderbergh says it. I believe it's a fucking really funny story.
Yeah, he.
Are you gonna divulge it all?
I think the story was like he went to a club that Rodney Dangerfield was at, met him in a bathroom, and he was like, after he had done his set, and Rodney was like, "Hey, this comedy thing is all for you," and he was just like, "All right," and then like a few years later, he had blown up, and he ran into Rodney Dangerfield again. And he's like, "Oh, who knew?"
Yeah, I think he was like peeing out a urinal next to him. He was like, "Guess I was wrong."
Yeah. You actually have a pretty good impression. You and Dan Soder also has a great
That's an
impression.
insane one. I saw Dan started doing Cat Williams the other day.
Yeah. Hey,
very funny.
No gets no respect. Woman of color.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Francis.
I'm going to go with Rodney Dangerfield.
Whoa.
I like Mitch Hedberg a lot, and interestingly, both comedians are more similar, I think, in their humor than you'd think, because so many of their jokes just come as a very surprising punchline. But I think Rodney Dangerfield moved the needle in comedy more than Mitch Hedberg did, and he was kind of a pioneer of a style and super original. So Rodney
Hedberg might not have had a chance. Like he was getting on like that 70s show and just getting into the mainstream that he tried to stay away from for a long time. He just wasn't into it.
Even Rodney, it took a while.
Yeah.
Oh, it took a really long time. Rodney was very old when he hit it big.
Yeah, I think if Mitch Hedberg hadn't died prematurely, he would have been a mega star. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think like their delivery too is kind of similar in that like it's a lot of like segmented.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like a long storytelling.
No, it's very similar. Do you guys know Stephen Wright?
Yes.
Yeah. So Mitch Hedberg is, I think, a darker version of Stephen Wright. Very funny, but that's very similar. Talking about these like absurdities and like using kind of joking with the English language a bit.
Right. So,
Klemmer.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'm gonna go with Rodney.
Yeah, of course.
Why? Of course.
I feel like the younger person and
I'm not that fucking old, man.
I feel like they're always
get it.
fighting.
I'm not like 80.
No,
years
but
old.
I feel like with you, they're always gonna fight an uphill battle.
No, I mean, I saw Mitch Hedberg in person. I never saw Rodney Dangerfield in person, but for the reasons like Francis said, like when you talk about like pioneers in comedy and talk about people who, it's just very hard to put Mitch Hedberg ahead of, in my opinion, like Rodney Dangerfield, who literally like changed the game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And just to clarify, it's strictly personal favorites we're voting on, right? It's not like who's the best comedian.
Objectively best. Who do you think was the better stand-up comedian?
Oh, okay.
Think about that way.
See, I'm more of a Mitch Hedberg guy, but I know for a fact Rodney Dangerfield is way more impactful on comedy as a whole.
But I think it's whoever you like more.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I want to mention, I'm less than 10 years older than Nate. Nate and I are not that far apart in age.
Nate is getting old.
Yes, he is.
Two different generations.
That was a body bag right there.
It's close as you might want to say. my friend.
Just
saying.
two
That was a cool thing
different
about Rodney
generations.
Dangerfield too that I always think is respect that a lot of people don't realize. He like got old. He got famous when he was like 40.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is cool.
Took him a long
Miracles
time.
was the same way. He got famous when he was like 38.
So Rodney Dangerfield's going to move on, and now we have the 4 seed versus the 13 seed. The 4 seed is Richard Pryor, one of the all-time
Oh my
greats.
gosh.
He's going to be
wow.
And this think about it this way: if he's at number 4, like how many giants you got to beat?
Yes.
Get ahead of him. One of the all-time funniest guys. I mean, and beyond. And there's another guy who obviously great in stand-up, and also I think transitioned to Hollywood pretty damn well. Like I like pretty much every movie I'd seen him in. Not like at the same level as some of the other guys we'll see on here, but still. And he's going up at number 13 seed, a newer addition. But a guy that's had I would say at least 3 like really good like banger specials. We talked about him a lot when we were just kind of trying to see this out. John Mulaney.
Oh, jeez, this is gonna be a hard bracket, dude.
John Mulaney has just been he's so goddamn funny. His delivery is great. His stories are great. He's great punchlines. Like everything about him has been very funny. Another guy who's just in skits and everything else is still very good. Great writer as well. So Richard Pryor versus John Mulaney. Klemmer.
I mean, New in Town is one of my favorite all-time comedy albums, period. I think I have to go Richard Pryor here for a number of reasons. Obviously, just the fact that his stuff holds up really well today. Just broke a lot of ground. And even if you watch them, like I like to watch the old SNLs, like from 75 to 80. I just they're on DVD. You can go get them and you can like watch them in their entirety with the music and everything. And his stuff, like the stuff he has with Chevy Chase, like still hits today. Like his comedy was not only of its time, but also ahead of its time at the same time, which is really, really hard to do. John Mulaney's like a personal favorite of mine. Like, if you told me I could only listen to one CD, who would I rather listen to, or one, stream one thing now? I'd probably maybe listen to Mulaney. Maybe if I had to pick one album for the rest of my life. But like Richard Pryor meant more to me. And I'm not even counting the movies, which you mentioned. Like, he's very funny in all those movies in the 70s and 80s. Like, Moving, The Toy are both very funny movies.
Brewster's Millions.
Brewster's Millions is funny. But yeah, I'm going to go Richard Pryor here.
He also...
This is much tougher than probably should be for me.
He also fucked Marlon Brando, right?
Well, there's
Allegedly.
rumors.
I don't know if was that alleged? I thought that was just confirmed.
Someone said it.
Marlon Brando is...
We didn't have the penetration footage.
No footage. Yeah,
It's very sad. Richard Pryor got MS. He wasn't that old, and I would have liked to see what that last act of his career would have been if he hadn't gotten sick.
So one for Richard Pryor.
This is gonna be just me, not being a contemporary fan of Richard Pryor. I don't know if his work has resonated with me. I may not be enough of a comedy historian.
I say go with your heart. Don't go.
It's Mulaney for me, but I feel like I'm wrong about that. But because I know what a titan Richard Pryor is, and he's often listed as being, by comedians I respect, the greatest ever. It's him and Carlin 1-2 for most people who know comedy. But for me, just because I haven't gone back and watched the old tapes enough, it's John Mulaney. I think John Mulaney, for me as a comedian, is the person I would desire to emulate in style the most. I think his jokes are unbelievable. They're so smart. They're not mean at all, which is so rare. And John Mulaney,
Not really dirty either. Like, he's usually pretty clean.
Yeah.
Very funny.
I'm so glad we split our vote, because everything you said is like, I feel that you know what I mean. Like, I could have gone Mulaney and then I would have had the same exact reaction you had.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad we split our vote.
I think in my own grading here, I would go with Mulaney as well, but it's because I'm going with my heart versus brain here. Like, again, same thing. Like, obviously a mega titan in the world of stand-up. But if you're like you were saying, throw this guy on an island where you get this guy's discography or whatever forever, I'm picking John Mulaney.
It's one Mulaney, but if I have the whole library, then Pryor. If that makes any sense.
See, I would even say Mulaney. 'Cause I resonate more, I guess, with him than most stand-up.
Go back and listen to it though, because a lot of stuff does really hold up, especially the stuff like race relations and all that stuff. He's amazing.
One of the last ones I watched was him saying like how white guys curse differently, and he's like, you guys woke up and you're like, oh, gee willikers, like whatever it is. And like that's actually the old school version of it, but it killed me. So 2 for John Mulaney, 1 for Richard Pryor.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I got comedy fraud saying it, but I got to go with Mulaney too. It seems like it's like me saying, oh, I think Miguel Cabrera is a better hitter than Stan Musial because I grew up watching Miguel Cabrera instead of I didn't see Stan Musial play. Whereas obviously I know Stan Musial or like Ted Williams is historically better than Miguel Cabrera. It's just I wasn't there to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, I have to go with Mulaney. I mean, I love Mulaney. I think he's very funny. And like even just like podcast clips too. Obviously he's a funny dude, but a lot of people are just naturally funny. He's so naturally funny. His delivery is so funny. Just the way he speaks, the way his voice works. So I'm going to go with Mulaney. But once again, it's weird because obviously Richard Pryor should be ahead of John Mulaney.
Again, it's go with the heart. Don't go with like just strictly brain.
That was sick. That was a good baseball analogy.
That was really good.
Mulaney, easy. I think Mulaney, he has so many funny specials. Even I loved his last special talking about rehab, talking about the intervention that his celebrity friends held for him. Like, he is so funny through different like versions of himself as well. I thought the last special was like a very different take on John Mulaney. It was still so funny. Richard Pryor, unfortunately, I missed out on completely.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the specials.
Like, even the movies that you just named, I had never heard of any of them.
Moving in the Toy.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, or like Brewster's Millions.
Brewster's Millions is more
No.
really.
Interesting crossover here again. 2 guys that had major drug moments in their careers and continued through them. Famously, Richard Pryor lit himself on fire as a result, I think, of a heroin episode. And
Freebase, yeah, I think he's right about it. Yeah.
So
John Mulaney.
Yeah, same reasoning as everybody else. It doesn't really matter who I say because Mulaney already moved on. I Salt and Pepper Diner, John Mulaney, when I was like in, I don't know, sophomore year of high school, whatever it was. That changed the way I thought about comedy forever. Like, just very long story. That's kind of what put him on the map originally, I think. I think Mulaney is unbelievable, but it's Richard Pryor. Also, we're on the same boat. Like, we know Richard Pryor is the guy, but we just didn't grow up with
I
it.
think we all got to do some homework on Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you haven't had a chance, like definitely stream his stuff or check out some of his specials if you can find him streaming.
Now we have the 9 seed versus the 8 seed. The 9 seed is one, and we had like a lengthy discussion about this too when we were talking about seeding. Norm Macdonald, where with Norm, I think of him more as like not as much as like a solo stand-up act versus being like his appearances on other things, if that makes sense. But those are still stand-up sets. You know what I mean?
I think of him as stand-up.
Stand-up.
He's the best stand-up I've ever seen in my life.
Stand-up is unbelievable.
Yeah,
and every time I watch that, it's so funny. It's I was just like watching for the sake of this one, him talking about like Germany, like and visiting Germany for the first time. It's everyone. His delivery, his writing, it's just everything about it is so damn funny. And I threw him up against like I would say like maybe culturally one of like the stand-up guys, Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, man.
As the 8 seed. Jerry Seinfeld, who just as much as people say his act never changed, he did the same material, which I think you mention a lot.
I don't mention that. I love Jerry. I'm the biggest Jerry fan you'll ever find.
I remember you mentioning like his routine hadn't changed really over the course of like many years.
Well, his whole thing was perfecting it. He's like a scientist with it. Jerry's thing. The reason and I'm sure talking about stuff that isn't aged well, like the 70s with Richard Pryor, who talked a lot about race relations, who got and Carlin, who would always kind of pick apart government, and then you needed a break from that, and he had this observational humor, which I know a lot of people kind of mock now. It's like, oh, it's so corny, observational humor. Maybe it is for younger audiences, but in the 80s, it was like that hadn't been heard before. Like, you know, tearing apart kind of the little minutiae of life hadn't happened, and he was the best at it.
So Norm Macdonald versus Jerry Seinfeld, Nate.
This is really hard, dude. Ah, God. Seinfeld. I love Norm so much, and it's almost like it feels bad. But I'm of the agreement that I like Norm more, like Weekend Update Norm over his stand-up Norm. Fuck, that's really hard.
It's a hard choice.
It's Seinfeld for me though.
Seinfeld, Robbie.
We're just doing stand-up, yeah.
Yeah, so like I like the show Seinfeld better than anything I like from Norm. But as stand-ups, like Norm definitely can make me laugh way harder than Jerry Seinfeld can. So I'd go Norm.
Norm?
I'm going to go echo Bob's sentiment and go Norm here. Like I love Seinfeld, one of my favorite shows. I fall asleep to it every now and then, a lot. But
obviously he's not just Jerry like writing the whole show. Like,
Him and Larry.
Yeah.
Those last two seasons were just Jerry, mostly.
Yeah, Larry left the last 2 seasons. But Norm is, I also consider him, he's a great stand-up. I also consider him on like, just as you mentioned, talk shows. He's just so naturally fucking funny.
Yeah.
Which I do think that counts for something if we're talking about stand-ups. Just like the way they talk, their mannerisms, and obviously Norm, the way he speaks is so fucking
Norm's 9/11 bit is probably my favorite thing ever done.
God.
So I'm going to go with Norm as well.
Blood and bone.
I do think it's like just how naturally funny they are should be considered as well.
Yeah, I would go with Norm as well. Just he's so effortlessly funny. He's also like a super brave stand-up comedian, I think too. Like he like dedicates to a bit. Like
oh yeah,
like, I wouldn't say to a fault is maybe the wrong way to put it, but like he'll be like, I'm making this joke. I know it's funny. If you don't get it, like you'll figure it out eventually. You know what I mean? And I respect that a lot. I respected it a lot out of Norm. So funny, and he's one of those guys. Anytime if I'm like on whatever Twitter, TikTok, or YouTube or something, and like a clip of his comes up, I watch it to completion. No matter what it is, I'll stop what I'm doing to watch. So I will jizz to completion to Norm Macdonald's face. Yeah. Right. So 3 for Norm. Francis.
To me, Seinfeld is sort of classical music. He is the Roger Federer of stand-up comedy. Clean cut, suit, surgical, precise, effortless, makes it look easy, just everything dotted and, crossed and so classy. I mean, he's the personification of class in stand-up. Always played in these beautiful theaters and stuff like that. Norm is more of an everyman comics comic, and I think a lot of comedians would say he's their favorite comedian. It just didn't seem to matter what was going on in his life. His pursuit of success seemed secondary to his enjoyment of performing and telling jokes and writing jokes. And as much as I revere and respect Seinfeld, fundamentally Norm makes me laugh harder. I'm going Norm.
Another one for Norm. Norm's going to win, but Klemmer?
I've been very lucky. I got to see both of them multiple times do stand-up in person, and Jerry made me laugh a ton. It was incredible, but knowing me laugh harder than Norm Macdonald, so I gotta go to Norm.
You told me you saw him twice, right? And like he crushed you both times.
I saw Norm twice at Caroline's, and both times I don't know if I ever laughed as hard. He told a joke, a quick one, where he was, imagine if you killed yourself and you left a note and you just blamed your barber. How would that change that man's life? And he goes into great detail about it, as only Norm can. It's just, and the timing and the delivery is just perfect, and just what an absurd thought. And just it's so funny.
Dude, one of the funnier things I've ever heard about Norm Macdonald, Artie Lang says it on a few talk shows. He's talking about how one time they were all at a party, like in the late 90s, and he assigned Andy Dick to watch Chris Farley at a party. And he goes away for like 20 minutes, and he comes back to and Artie assigns Andy Dick to watch him. And Artie comes back after 20 minutes. Who knows what Artie was doing? And Artie comes back and he goes to Norm. He's like, dude, where is Chris? And he's like, oh, he's in the bathroom with Andy Dick. And Norm just goes, fuck, I hope he's high.
Effortless. So Norm Macdonald's going to move on. Now we can do our first play-in game. First play-in option is another one. It's kind of tough to figure out how to seed him in this. Anthony Jeselnik, we talked about him a lot. Nate's like the number one Jeselnik beater. I would say. Here, at least.
I was just saying I like his new special.
Oh, I thought you were saying you were just a huge Jeselnik.
No, he has a new special out like last week. I watched it. I thought it was very good.
Hubs, I know, said liked him too, but he's also like super. Is it sardonic? Is the word? I guess like very dark. Like I think he fits that sense of humor well. Bernie Mac, who is his great stand-up. Bill Hicks.
Bill Hicks.
I gave you Bill Hicks for this.
Thank you. He deserved a mention in the plan.
I'll let you. You said he was ripped off by Dennis Leary.
Yeah, Dennis Leary completely stole his act, and poor Bill Hicks got cancer and died very young, and then Dennis Leary just was off and running. They were different people for sure. Like Dennis Leary is more charismatic, but Bill Hicks, the hyper intellectual comedy from Dennis Leary had in like the early '90s, a lot of that's Bill Hicks.
It's weird to think of him as hyper intellectual because like in my brain I think of him as like the I want coffee flavored coffee guy.
Once Bill Hicks died, he couldn't rip him off anymore. Then he went to become the coffee guy.
Yeah. After that, Shane. We need to include Shane. If we don't include Shane in some capacity, we're gonna get fucking demolished.
He deserves to be here.
He's extremely funny. I've loved both his specials. He's very like super funny. Obviously, you know him well. Dave Attell, also another guy I feel like deserved to be mentioned. He's very funny. And then Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers, this is one where she's like on the top, most of these like top fives and stuff, and I'm like, I know her mostly from like the red carpet interviews and things like that, which were all very funny. But then I watched some of her stand-up, and I'm like, damn, she's really fucking good stand-up as well. Never really put it together. So we'll start with you, Klemmer. Jeselnik, Bernie Mac, Bill Hicks, Shane, Dave Attell, or Joan Rivers?
I'm going to go Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers, especially being a female comic at that time, was tough. And just
white knighting over there.
I'll tell you, if anyone wouldn't have wanted to have a white knight, it's Joan Rivers. Like she was
very not politically
ruthless.
correct.
She was a strong, independent woman.
Did not give a fuck. And then there's a great documentary about her right near the end of her life, how she just couldn't stop working. Are you making faces at Glenny? You don't like Joan Rivers?
I'm busting your balls.
I like women.
Red carpet.
Oh, Joan Rivers? No, not the red carpet stuff.
I take Amy Schumer.
No.
Her stand-up is great. If you have a chance, check out that documentary where she just could not stop working. She loved doing stand-up. She loved the act of it. And like I said, she was about as mean and ruthless a comic as you find, man or woman or otherwise. Like, she was fierce. Now, Joan Rivers made me laugh a lot, like my entire life.
One for Joan Rivers.
This is going to be a homer pick. I'm going with Shane, and I have a reason. It reflects a little bit of my reasoning behind the Richard Pryor, John Mulaney thing. But basically, Shane is so contemporary. He's writing about the things that are happening that we're all experiencing. He's got a great Trump impression. And as somebody who is the exact same age as he is and has worked in the same rooms, and I just am kind of baffled at how much better he is than I am at exactly the same thing when we're talking about the same things. Does that make sense? Nobody humbles me more than him because the gulf between us is so great, and we're working the same amount of shows in the same rooms, and yet his jokes are just that much better. And it's kind of like one of those things that you just accept, that some people were put on this earth to do a certain thing, and he is put on this earth to do stand-up comedy and be better at it than everybody. And it just, I don't know, it just doesn't even seem like it's that hard for him.
His act seems so effortless too. Like it seems so train of thought, like just like this is what this guy thinks about the world.
I also think that we know he's going to be one of the great comedians. And we see it so early in his career that how many more years of this do we get? You know what I mean? Like 15 more years of prime. Like for him to be so good so early in his coming out party is just like, there's no slow burn here.
Yeah.
There's no early special of Shane Gillis that isn't going to age well. That's going to look like rookie season stuff, as far as I can tell. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Shane for me.
Out of this grouping, I think I would also do Shane because I think Jeselnik, I've never connected with Jeselnik on like a fundamental level. Like all of his stand-ups, I've never really, I don't know. I just don't gel with his style of comedy. Bernie Mac, I do. Bill Hicks, I don't really know. Klemmer has introduced me to him now. David Tell, I thought was very funny. Joan Rivers, I think is very funny. I think none of these people have made me laugh harder than Shane, and maybe that's just because Shane's comedy special just hits me at the perfect age grouping and all that shit. But like I think both of his specials that I've seen were so fucking funny, and they make me laugh a lot. So I gotta go Shane. Glenny.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Shane. I think he's the funniest person in the world probably right now. He makes me laugh more than anybody. And I was just thinking this, and Shane, if you see this clip, I'm sorry for saying this, but like if he like died tomorrow, I feel like he'd be considered like Tupac or Jimi Hendrix. In the comedy world, he'd be like Tupac, like that level. I mean, he's the funniest person ever.
Stay
Put
safe.
that on a quote card. Send that to Shane. If Shane Gillis died tomorrow, he'd be Tupac.
He'd be like
of the stand-up comedy world, he'd be Tupac.
I mean, he would definitely be like, revered, like Mitch Hedberg.
Everybody would be like, oh, he's the funniest guy ever.
Yeah.
500,000 people in the streets of Pittsburgh bringing down his coffin.
Yeah. think of the way that Chris Farley's remembered. It's kind of like this iconic John Belushi, and
True.
you know, like.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a reach by Glenny.
People are gonna just
That was or wasn't?
It wasn't.
No. I don't think, and for the record, I don't want Shane to die.
No, it's just funny that
Nothing needs to be
Tupac.
said.
Yeah. I hope people just don't think like, oh, Robbie's just all of his picks are young people picks, but I'm also going Shane. Like out of this list, Shane has definitely made me laugh more than the rest. I am a David Tell guy. I think David Tell's hysterical.
Yeah.
Never been a Jeselnik guy. Again, I don't really know much Bill Hicks stuff. Don't know much Bernie Mac stuff. So yeah, I'll go Shane.
Can I say one thing about Jeselnik? I feel like just every clip I see about him, he gives him a very condescending vibe.
Yeah.
That's his act.
That's his tone.
I just don't like it.
Yeah. Nate?
It's Shane. Everything Francis said. Just he's already a legend. I've only laughed. I've seen basically every comedian that I want to see live. There's only one that made me laugh harder than Shane, and he's yet to be mentioned. But yeah, Shane.
I have a feeling he might be coming up soon. Don't say it. But
It's Shane.
Might be in the room.
And I really Francis's act is so good, and he's hard on himself.
Nate said that he thought I was a better comedian than Shane. I'd fucking quit Barstool tomorrow.
I think you potentially could be.
Yeah, your act. I remember
You
this.
have to die pretty soon.
If Glenny's wish came true,
That's not my wish.
Glenny's over here. Ooh,
Funny is his biggie.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, Shane now runs into a bit of a buzzsaw. That our number one seed is it's impossible. It was very difficult trying to pick out the one seed. It's Louis C.K. Louis C.K. stand-up, every stand-up special he's done has been so fucking funny. It's been like unbelievably good. Me and Robbie were just watching Louis the show earlier. Just
It's a great show.
the clip with the button. It's every time I see that I just fucking cry laughing. It's so good. So Louis C.K. versus Shane Gillis. This is actually like this could be like a finals matchup, honestly. Like
Yeah, this is
the
unfair.
contemporary brain, but it's tough. Start with you, Nate.
It's Louis.
He's tough to beat, man.
It just is.
Like
I don't want to elaborate. It's just Louis.
I'm trying to think of who, because obviously Louis sold out MSG pretty recently, but so did Shane. So like,
Yeah, no,
who would
I
and I don't know.
Shane's getting fucked by the seeding here, but it's Louis.
Yeah, Louis.
I've unfortunately never been a Louis guy.
Oh my
I know. People have given me shit for this literally like my entire life, even before Louis got canceled. Obviously, much more before Louis got canceled, half canceled, whatever one you say about it. So yeah, I'm gonna go Shane, but it's not even like I'm so much more passionate about Shane being a better comic. It's just Louis never resonated with me. I'm not sure if I've given so many of his specials a chance. Like all of my friends love him and are, quote his jokes and cry laughing. Just something never connected to me. Like I think the clips from Louis the show I've seen are funnier than the Louis stand-up I've seen even. Like maybe it's just my sense of humor. I don't know what it is. I've never been a Louis guy.
Well, 1-1 right now, Glenny.
Shane.
Wow.
Shane, wow, no question.
I really don't know much Louis, and probably there's maybe 2 guys that I would pick ahead of Shane all time. So I'm going Shane.
With between these two, I kind of think Shane and Louis are kind of similar in certain ways. I think like Louis is way more depraved in his comedy than Shane is, but Louis had so much more success over so many more years, and his you go back and watch like even especially from a while ago, like older ones, they're still really, really damn funny, and he has great delivery. And like nothing, you look at Louis C.K. and nothing about him should be charming.
No,
like, nothing about him should make you like laugh with him, and you do. So I'm gonna go with Louis. So 2-2 right now.
I'm going Louis. I think Shane would go Louis.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Shane said this great story. It might have even been on Kevin's pod about how when he was preparing for his SNL monologue, he was trying to figure out what to do, and he was talking to Louis about it, and he said, I might just kind of go do some newer material or something, or I don't know, write a new set for it. And Louis said, don't do that. And Louis said, don't do that. You need to do your best stuff right now. And Shane said, but when you go out there, don't you? And Louis said, Shane, I'm such a better comedian than you will ever be. and Shane agreed. He accepted that. So I mean, I think body of work. Louis is the guy who puts out a special every year. He churns and burns, and doesn't ever seem to be a major drop off from one to the next. And he's just been so consistent for such a long time. And it's Louis. Which isn't to say that, Shane couldn't overtake him someday, but for right now, it's, yeah.
I was watching the Cinnabon bit from Louis the other day. It's so fucking good.
But he eats it when he lands at the airport.
Yeah, and he's like, every guy at the Cinnabon looks like me or fatter. And we're all just like, oh, fuck. We have to eat a Cinnabon. Like, oh, he's so good. Klemmer?
Yeah, Louis C.K. has this great joke where he says his vacation is when he's going on vacation with his kids. He puts the kids in the car, and he walks from putting the kids in his car to the driver's side door. And that's his vacation at like 5 seconds. And like Shane just hasn't lived long enough to have life experiences like that. And I think it's like body of work and just life experiences. So I'm going to go with Louis just because he's been around longer and has more stuff to joke about. But maybe Shane does overtake him eventually. But Louis C.K. for right now, for sure.
I wonder what it would be like if Louis did more like, because obviously Shane does like pods and stuff like that. I wonder what it would be like if Louis did more of that stuff, because I feel like you rarely see him do a lot of like.
He doesn't overexpose himself.
Yeah.
A
little bit.
Funny choice of words.
Yeah. But yeah, I wonder what it'd be like if he did more of those. But yeah, anyway, so Louis C.K. is going to move on. Before we get to the second half of the bracket, let's talk about Ibotta. Big holidays mean big family get-together, so gather your loved ones together and enjoy all the holiday traditions you cherish with the help of cashback from Ibotta. This month, Ibotta is giving new users 100% cashback on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem everything that you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you need to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. They give you cashback on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can get everything you need for the holidays. You also earn cashback on hundreds of online brands from retailers when you start using Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying the Ibotta app using code BRACKET when you register. So just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cashback using code BRACKET. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store using code BRACKET. All right, second half of the bracket, number 11 seed versus the 6 seed. 11 seed is Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy, just one of the all-timers. Raw, like all these different specials he had, especially towards like the late 80s. Just iconic.
Raw and Delirious.
Just two of the most like iconic specials you'll ever see. And that's going up against number 6. I feel like there's another guy Glenny will probably love, Don Rickles.
My favorite.
Don Rickles is another guy just effortlessly funny.
Only book I've read in the last like 10 years is Don Rickles' autobiography.
Really? How was that?
Yeah. Literally, you could read it in an hour.
Right.
I got it during COVID. It was like 80 pages, and it was in font that Don Rickles would need to read the book.
You spent 1 hour of reading in the last 10 years?
I've read more like articles. The only book I've purchased was Don Rickles' autobiography.
I love it. If you're like, Glenny, do you read? He's like, yeah, the articles.
Yeah.
I haven't read a book. The only book I've read is literally Don Rickles' autobiography.
Yeah. So Eddie Murphy versus Don Rickles. Klemmer.
So Eddie Murphy, maybe if he had never become an actor, maybe would have overtaken. But Eddie Murphy had other things going on. He even had a number 1 song at one point. But Don Rickles was a stand-up, and he was always a stand-up outside of Casino and a couple other things. But he's always funny, whether he be on the Tonight Show when I was growing up with Johnny Carson, or like even like you. And it always ages well. Like,
Yeah.
calling someone a hockey puck is always funny. Like, he's just always funny. He's just it always worked, and he always managed to do it with like a twinkle in his eye. That it was never. He was like roasting you, but it was always done with a mischievous glance.
Never felt mean.
It never felt like, oh yeah, and I don't know. Don Rickles was like such a brilliant guy and so good at what he did. I can't not pick him.
Yeah, so mentally quick. Francis?
I'm interested that you chose Eddie Murphy as the 11th seed and Don Rickles as the 6th. I would have had them switched. I think to me Eddie Murphy is, my God, like that was the start of my dream of becoming a comedian. I used to listen to him on Napster.
Yeah.
I distinctly
The Soulja Boy
remember
file, yeah.
downloading Eddie Murphy on Napster and just memorizing the bits and then going into school and regurgitating them. And I think a lot of comedians would list him as being one of the people that influenced them. Don Rickles is the original roast comic. You know, he's kind of he's amazing. He's a specific niche. But when you talk about this list that we're building, which, you know, we're defining people by specials and bodies of work, for me, it's definitely Eddie Murphy over Don Rickles.
So I would have immediately just picked Don Rickles because I'm in the same camp as you, Klemmer, where I'm like, if he didn't get into movies and music and the other parts of the entertainment world, like I think he would have been probably like the best stand-up comedian ever, because that was so, just between those two specials alone was like top of the world. But in Rickles, every time, everything you see about him, whenever any special, it's a set, whatever, roast, he's crushes it and effortlessly, so funny, so quick-witted. But I think after hearing that explanation, I'm switched. I'm swapped over to Eddie, because there really isn't like a special of Don Rickles. You know what I mean? Like there's not like you go watch his like hey, here's a 40-minute thing from Rickles. Like there really isn't. It's more just like appearances in other types of media. So as far as stand-up comic, I think I would agree, Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, Don Rickles is one of my favorites ever. I think like two people make me laugh more than Shane, maybe, and he's one of them. And I mean, I love Eddie. I forgot if it's in Delirious or Raw. There's a bit he has about like Italians seeing Rocky.
Yeah, and then they want to fight after.
Yeah.
Absurdly funny. But I mean, Rickles, just every single appearance he's on, he may not win this, but if you're watching this, like, go watch Don Rickles on the Johnny Carson show with Frank Sinatra when he did like, I think it was some like thing honoring Reagan. He's just so quick-wittedly funny. Even he did a series right before he died called Dinner with Don, sponsored by AARP. And he's like 90 years old, just sitting and having dinner with like Scorsese and Vince Vaughn and De Niro, and the way he would still speak when he was 90 years. No, it's 8 different episodes. When he was 90 years old, he was still.
That's
like,
awesome.
His wit was still
So
going.
fast.
Even they did a Spike special, like a special on him, like 10 years ago probably. He couldn't even stand up, and he just sat there and watched everybody, and then let him talk at the end. And the way he would speak is so funny, and like you just said, it's so like no one ever like. I mean, he never made fun of me, but you could tell as mean this stuff was, it didn't matter. Like everyone was just obviously laughing at him. He is unfathomably so funny. I'm obsessed with Don Rickles, so my pick's Don Rickles.
I forget which one it was. I think it might have been the roast of Clint Eastwood, but he's sitting there talking to Clint Eastwood, and he's like, "Clint, we were in movies together. You're a lousy actor." It's like I always hated you.
Yeah, that thing with the Reagan. It's like, oh, De Niro's here, Bob's here. He's like, greatest living actor. Ask him, he'll tell you. He'll be the first one to tell you.
He'll make sure to tell you.
Like
yeah.
just the way he was so like mean to people. Like he was like, there's one thing I saw with Julia Roberts. And he's like, Julia, you have no lines. Which
Yeah.
He's just
Trying to like
so
chime in.
fucking funny. I love him.
There's the great story with Sinatra, right? When he goes out to the restaurant,
yeah.
Sinatra's there with a date, and he brings a date and goes over to Frank and says, "Frank, I'd like to impress this lady. Do you think you could come over and say hi to us while we're eating the dinner? You know, act cool about it." So Frank says, "Of course," and he comes over and he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to say hi." You know, Frank comes over to impress this girl, and Don goes, "Frank, we're trying to have dinner here."
Also, he was on
So
Letterman
funny.
with Denzel probably like 15 years ago, and he's an older guy, and he's still so goddamn
Yeah.
funny. It's unbelievable.
So we're 2-2.
Personally, I'm going to go Eddie Murphy. I remember my dad, my mom, my brother, sister telling me about Delirious. And it was like, you know, before streaming, you couldn't like just go stream Delirious. So they were like, we're going to find the DVD and we're going to get it for you. It's the funniest stand-up special. He's wearing this red jumpsuit, like he's got the Carvel bit. And they brought it home. They went and got the DVD at like FYE, and we watched it as a family. And it was like one of the first comedy specials I ever saw in my life. And that was like, it was like a fundamental, like changed my life moment in a way. And I'm not even like an Eddie Murphy super fan, but it was just like, oh my God, I love this. Like, I love stand-up comedy. It sent me down the path of watching stand-up specials and stuff. So it's got to be Eddie Murphy. And then Raw right after it, I remember that they bought like the 2-pack DVD, and just having those two back to back, it was like, holy shit.
So 3 for Eddie Murphy, 2 for Don Rickles.
It's Eddie Murphy. He is. People are gonna be like, how is he not a 1 seed? Like,
I agree with Francis that the
Yeah,
seeds definitely. I would've flipped.
he's so dominant, and then he just got into movies, obviously, because he's that good and that much funnier. Like, he is that much funnier than everybody. He could go, he's Donkey and Shrek. He could hop back on the stage right now and be funnier than everybody. He's just.
You can also make case he's the best sketch comedian ever. He's
Right,
still
like,
in
but
SNL,
on that SNL cast, he was still funnier than everybody. Which is
by a mile. You
Right,
might
like-
say he's the best one ever. You
yeah,
can
like
make that argument.
I think we are, as a panel, underrating what a juggernaut Eddie Murphy is.
We're talking
Like,
just a stand-up though, and in my opinion, it was just too short.
He needed
That's
two.
all.
He needed
There's no
2
wrong
specials to become the biggest actor comedian in the world. Like, he's just
Yeah.
that good.
Yes.
Long Island.
Is he from Long Island? Where
Really?
is he?
Roosevelt, Long Island.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't.
Didn't know that.
And Don's from Queens.
And then there's also, we add in Charlie Murphy to the equation too. Also very funny.
We could, yeah.
He's got that gif.
What's that?
He's got
Charlie
that
Murphy.
gif.
He's got just very funny stories.
Yeah.
So Eddie Murphy's gonna move on now. We have the 3 seed versus the 14 seed. 3 seed, another like Titan guy, which you had mentioned earlier, George Carlin. George Carlin is like another guy, foundational in stand-up comedy. Like, you talk about anything with stand-up, he's just like one of those guys you have to mention. I don't know that and this is something I realized after I posted a call out like, hey, who's your favorite stand-up comedian? I used a gif of George Carlin, and I don't think maybe his stuff is registered as much for younger people, because people are kind of like, I don't think he was very funny, blah 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 blah. Like, I didn't like his delivery. I don't think he's a comic. He's more of a storyteller. Blah blah blah. Like, I still think he's really fucking funny. It's just it's specific sort of style maybe. And he's going up against number 14 seed Bill Burr. Bill Burr.
Oh.
This was a late one to swap in for somebody else who ended up in a playing game at Kevin's request. So Bill Burr versus George Carlin. Nate. It's weird because Bill Burr would say, why would you not pick George Carlin? You know what I mean? This is where it gets...
So, who was Bill Burr? Is that comedian to me that never resonated with me. I understand why he became so massive, and everybody. It's not like I dislike him or anything, but I never was like, stop the presses. I need to watch everything. I've seen most everything he's done because I watch all comedy, but he just to me is randomly that one comedian that I'm like, take it or leave it type of thing. That's why I'm not upset about his seating. And Carlin, as you said, like he's like a Mount Rushmore guy. It's just still very funny to this day. Carlin is now being like hero worshipped in a weird way by the internet, where it's like he was so far before his time type of political stuff, which I don't really think he was. I think he was exactly at the right time. But Carlin, you know, he could make anything funny. He was a very deep thinker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's Carlin.
I think they would call him like a philosopher first, like comedian second, or something like that.
Yeah.
Robbie?
And I like his style. Like I like
his style, too.
that style a lot.
This is tough for me. These would be two of my top 3 favorite comedians. I would go Burr over Carlin. Carlin has a lot of specials I love and a lot of specials I don't really love. After Carlin's wife died, his specials got a lot more like pessimistic and angry at the world.
True.
I don't really love those. I feel bad. I know. I feel it's very sad.
Sorry, Bob.
It's sad, but like Burr, I think maybe the last Burr special I didn't love as much. But
Red Rocks was not.
yeah, for the most part, I think Bill Burr, when he is on his game, a Bill Burr bit will make me laugh as hard as any other bit in the entire world. The bit about jumping out of the helicopter and surviving and like not dying after you think you hit the water and you just scream. The bit about sinking the yacht. Like there's so many good ones that Burr has. And I even think he's like one of those guys where I think he might be funnier on his podcast where he's just talking to himself for an hour than he even is on stage. But yeah, I'll go Burr.
Also funny, like, you ever see the news appearance where like he was getting grilled by a newscaster for like making fun of the church?
Yeah.
Like, don't you think he went too far with the church? And he's like, no, do you think the Catholic Church went a little too far?
Yeah, he's just so quick, and yeah, Burr's hysterical.
So 1-1 right now, Glenny.
Yeah, I mean, I think this for me is the same plight that I'm going through with Richard Pryor. Like, obviously, you know, George Carlin is George Carlin. You hear about George Carlin. I'm just someone, this is kind of feels a bit critical after just talking about Don Rickles the way I did. But even not even comedy, just like with anything. For some reason in my brain, I'm immediately inclined to not watch older things. I don't love older things. I don't love seeing movies from the 70s, movies from the 80s.
You're an uncultured pig.
Yeah, I'm an uncultured pig. I like newer things. So obviously I prefer Burr. Actually, Bill Burr, one of the few celebrities to respond to his Glenny Ball invite.
No
way!
Wow.
He said, can't make it, but happy birthday, GB. If I
That's
recall
nice.
correctly.
Did you tell him Mo Vaughn was coming?
I should have said Mo Vaughn and David Wells will make an appearance.
Bill
But,
Burr,
so we're going Burr.
after Rough and Rowdy 3, I think it was, Bill Burr was on commentary. I did the interviews. Like, walked around the ring, shook my hand, was like, you were hysterical tonight. And then he talked about me on that episode of the podcast.
Oh.
It's my favorite compliment I've ever received.
Sounds like an all-class guy.
Just like the coolest thing
I'm
that's ever
all-class
happened
guy.
to me. Yeah.
Between these two, I think I'm kind of on Nate's side where, like, I don't think Bill Burr, his stand-up ever totally registered with me. Like, I've thought he was really funny in, like, appearances, in acting roles and other stuff like that. I don't know that
Love him in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, obviously in Breaking Bad, great, but not really like comedic stuff. But like I've liked him in basically everything except his stand-up, which has never really resonated in the same way that like George Carlin has in certain. And I would agree with you, pre-wife dying specials. So I would go with George Carlin, and obviously George Carlin's just like a fucking titan of this industry.
It's Bill Burr for me. He is my number one favorite comedian ever.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I love Bill Burr. I worship Bill Burr. And George Carlin, as you said, is a philosopher. And I think that he explored different ways to think about religion and God and existentialism and all these things that, that's not really what I watch comedy for.
More
Not
escapism.
trying to like think about life and meditate, and I just want to laugh. I want to smoke some weed and laugh. So Bill Burr for me.
Let me tell you, the few olds that listen to the bracket are going to get real angry when they see Pryor and Carlin on the first round exit.
The Pryor one's gonna eviscerate.
Prior one will set a bad precedent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand George Carlin is is probably funnier than Bill Burr. I understand, funny as far as like the textbook context of it. I understand all of it.
I would almost argue that. I think I would argue that.
All right, let me just get my point across. So I understand all of those things. But for me, Bill Burr is funnier personally than George Carlin. I think George Carlin's a much smarter person. I'm sure Bill Burr would say that too. And like you said, philosopher. Like his quotes, and I think you're wrong, Nate, as far as Carlin not being ahead of his time. I think he was. I think Carlin is so intelligent. He was almost for all times because the stuff he's talking about is so deep and not topical. But Bill Burr makes me laugh more, and this is what we're doing here, I think. And I gotta go Bill Burr.
That's weird because like I think Bill Burr is funnier than George Carlin, but I like George Carlin's stand-up more than Bill Burr's.
It's a taste thing too, and like George Carlin's delivery. You guys talk about like a style. Like George Carlin's style doesn't work for me. I don't know why, and I've tried a million times. I don't think he's bad.
Yeah.
It's just Bill Burr's style
It's
makes
very
me laugh.
different. The
And I'm
two
sure it's
styles
like a
are
dopey thing. I'm sure somebody a lot smarter than me right now is listening, mad at their.
That's why like comedy's all subjective.
Yes,
Like,
Yeah, and I know this is a totally subjective pick, but for me, Bill Burr is just funnier than George Carlin. I know that's probably not true.
I think
It is to me.
That's
Burr's
also
probably my one as well. I have like 3, like Carlin's in there as well for sure. My third I don't think would be on the bracket. Birbiglia.
we might talk about.
All right.
Oh, I might have thrown him in.
But either way, Bill Burr's going to move on. Now we have the 10 versus the 7. The 10 seed is Steve Martin, one of the all-time
Oh my
best-selling,
gosh.
great entertainers in the comedy world. He like set like every record for comedy.
He was the first comedian to
record
sell out
sales?
stadiums.
Yeah, he would sell it
70s.
for the first one to sell
Wow.
at stadiums. He was on like all the night shows all the time. He's like, I think he was the record. He set like the record for record sales for like a
Wow.
comedic special and all that stuff. Super funny, wildly talented. Like he could play like 15 instruments or something.
Very good
He's
on
one of the best banjo
yeah.
players.
Very good.
And still is one of the best banjo players
Yeah.
ever. Yeah. And he's going up as number 7 seed. A more traditional guy that we will definitely know more of, Chris Rock. Chris Rock his stand-up was unbelievably I will say here because I think his new stuff is not very good, but his old specials in like the early 2000s so goddamn funny. So Steve Martin versus Chris Rock. Klemmer,
This is very close for me.
you're a huge Steve Martin guy.
Steve Martin wrote maybe the best celebrity autobiography I ever read. It's called Born Standing Up, and it's just about his life in stand-up comedy and how he kind of got into it and why he eventually got out of it. It's fantastic. It's really worth the read. It's really entertaining. Please, if you like reading, Born Standing Up is great. I'm going to go with Steve Martin here. It's very close. Chris Rock is brilliant. I love Chris Rock. You're right. He's lost his fastball a little bit, but he looks young. He's older than he looks.
Yeah.
Steve Martin, to me, though, it was especially growing up as a kid in the in the 80s, like born 79, but a kid in the 80s, like watching stuff from the 70s a lot. Like I think Steve Martin, and his stuff ages so well because he always made fun of himself.
Yeah.
And he was like making fun of the act of celebrity, what it means to be a celebrity, and what the ego you get when you become a celebrity. He's very self-deprecating that way. I go Steve Martin here, but there's no wrong answer.
And not that it counts here, but like The Jerk. That's so funny.
So many of his movies. He's also a very good actor. He's
Planes, Trains. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Steve Martin's so funny.
I just watched that for the first time.
That's right.
Really? Is it great?
I watched it the day after Thanksgiving. It was, I was in the mood.
Perfect
It was
time.
fitting, yeah. Really good. Really funny.
Curses out that.
John Candy's so good too.
Oh my gosh. It makes me cry. I cry at the end of that movie every time.
Yeah.
So one for Steve Martin.
I mean, Klemmer makes great points. The book Born Standing Up was the moment that I went from being a fan of stand-up comedy to thinking I want to be a stand-up comic. It was reading that book.
What in the book made you?
Just sort of like, I don't know. I'd never really read about how jokes are written and come to be in the process of, starting in open mics and all this stuff. I'd never read anything about that. And it kind of connected. It showed the doorway in, which I'd never heard before. I had only just ever seen people who had already made it. And I thought, oh, well, that doesn't sound as hard to get into to start.
Sorry to get off track. Were there any comedians that you were doing open mics with that also went on to prosper as you did?
That's a great question.
'Cause you were doing like 5 a night or whatever for 2 years, 3, whatever it was. Was there someone else grinding that with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my class of comedians, fuck. I gotta have to think about that. I'll think about that a little bit.
I was just curious.
No, it's a good question.
Whoa, I used to see you in front of 7 people also.
Yeah,
like
right.
a Mark Norman type, something like that.
No, yeah, he was before my class.
Okay.
But Steve Martin, I love, and I thought he also was the person who made me think I could play music in stand-up. So,
oh, that's interesting. The origin of that.
Yeah, Steve Martin for me.
Steve Martin.
Hey, you talk about people who Francis saw. I mean, I don't want to brag, but Francis and I were in UCB together at the same time.
It's true.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
So he could have just said Chris Klemmer.
Chris Klemmer was one of my contemporaries who I watched. Thought, man, that guy's got it.
Wow, yeah. One day I could aspire to be that.
And then when they were,
when
they got the Barstool,
yeah, this guy's playing the Comedy Cellar.
They got the Barstool. They were at urinals next to each other. You said, who knew?
Who knew? I knew we make it this far.
Guess I was wrong.
2 for Steve Martin. I would also. He's another guy where I think Chris Rock is an incredibly good stand-up, and I think he resonated more.
This is blowing my mind.
He's resonated more with me as a kid. But then when I got older and I discovered Steve Martin stand-up, and I went and like rewatched all of his sets, all of his everything, all of his appearances, I was like, holy shit, he's more. Because in my brain, as a kid, because I didn't watch like Planes, Trains, like he was the guy from Cheaper by the Dozen.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the dad from Cheaper by the Dozen, like, and
Pink Panther. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like that's the guy who I thought him as. And then like as I got older and like started like watching movies like Planes, Trains, like The Jerk, I'm like, this guy's really funny. And then I remember I think my mom and dad being like, oh yeah, he was one of the great stand-ups when we were growing up. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go watch that. And his stand-up is so funny and he is so talented. It's fucking crazy. Great Twitter follow too, by the way. He
he's funny on social
rips
media.
off banjo solos like that are the coolest things you've ever heard in your life. Not that counts towards a stand-up thing, but his stand-up is very, very, very funny. So I would go with Steve Martin. 3 for Steve Martin.
Yeah, not even a debate for me, Chris Rock. Before I said, I think 2 people make me laugh more than Shane, and it was Don Rickles and Chris Rock. Bring the Pain is probably my favorite special of all time. Chris Rock, his delivery, he's unbelievable. And I grew up loving Chris Rock. I grew up, so like I always say, fall asleep to shows. I grew up for a steady like 2 or 3 years in my life falling asleep to Everybody Hates Chris.
Great show.
I had the DVDs, and then his DVDs would play the theme song throughout the night. So there's,
Oh, shit.
yeah, for the episode, it's just the theme song all night.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 and that's it the whole night. But Chris Rock I love Chris Rock. He's one of my favorites.
1 for Chris Rock.
Yeah, I love Steve Martin, but I say that in terms of his acting, really. I'm very unfamiliar with his stand-up.
Let's Get Small.
Yeah.
What's the album?
That was the big one.
That was so
yeah.
good.
I watched his documentary. I thought that was very good. But I'm gonna have to go Chris Rock. As far as material that I know, I think Chris Rock is hysterical, and I'm actually way more familiar with him as a stand-up. But I will use this and dig into some Steve Martin stuff afterwards.
Very funny. I would
Yeah.
definitely. It's all on YouTube.
Yeah, and I just love him from like acting. I think Only Murders is a great show on right now, and he's great in that. Him and Martin Short are great together. I want to see that they're doing a show together right now, a live show together, like
They're
Steve
so
Martin and Martin
funny
Short
together.
live, and I would see that for sure.
Who's the fucking Martin Short? Honestly, could have even. And not that he's like some prolific stand-up, but him as who's the big guy he plays?
Glick,
Jimmy
Glick.
Glick. Holy shit, dude!
So funny.
Almost
Yeah.
nothing makes me laugh as consistently.
So
as Jimmy
funny.
Glick.
It's not a perfect movie, Robbie, but check out Three Amigos. It's Martin Short, Steve
Yeah.
Oh
Martin,
yeah, I've
and
never
Chevy
seen it.
Chase.
Yeah, never seen it.
Lorne Michaels wrote it. I don't think he directed. I think he wrote it. For a while, Lorne Michaels wasn't working SNL, and this is what he did in that time frame.
So 3 for Steve Martin, 2 for Chris Rock.
I wish this could be the tiebreaker. I'm baffled that you guys picked Steve Martin. Like, Bring the Pain, Bigger and Blacker, Never Scared is the greatest 1, 2, 3 in a row a comedian has ever and will ever do. I cannot believe it wasn't 6-0 Chris Rock. It's Chris Rock. Like, come on.
You not like Steve Martin stand-up?
Like, it's fine. It's funny. He's one of the most talented people alive. He's not Chris Rock when it comes to stand-up. Chris Rock is stand-up comedy. Like, he is what stand-up comedy is to me. I remember being in high school when they were filming Never Scared in D.C., and I really, really, really wanted to go. I was probably like 15 or something. I think Chris Rock is maybe the greatest stand-up comedian of all time. I don't even hit everything about how he tells jokes, stage presence, every single thing about his stand-up comedy is perfect to me.
Yeah, I mean, I boarded a flight like extremely hungover Monday night, and I was going through Twitter. And I was like, "Oh fuck, I forgot Chris Rock hosted SNL this weekend." Immediately pulled up the monologue. It's just everything he does for me is a must watch.
Even
Good? I
his
didn't see
most
it. was
recent
great.
on Netflix, it's Selective Outrage. The first half is your classic old man yelling at the clouds. We can't say anything these days. The second half is classic Chris Rock, just perfect stand-up to me.
So that means we're tied up 3-3 right now, Jason. You're gonna have to break the tie.
Well, you're lucky because I'm not the biggest like stand-up guy, but I know both of these guys. And sorry, Nate, it's not a question. It is Steve Martin.
Right.
Ooh.
Go, Jason.
Call him Will Smith.
Fuck
am I
those
right?
dragons.
Because he just smacked Chris Rock out of the
Right out of
picture.
this.
Hey, topical.
So Steve Martin's gonna.
Fuck you, Robbie.
Steve Martin's gonna move on. Now we can do our second play-in game, starting with Patrice O'Neal, another one.
Oh,
Patrice, so damn funny.
so great.
Well, one of the ones I was just going back through, like watching some of this, because every time I like put a new comedian in here, I'd want to like watch their special. The part where he's like talking to the white lady, like, you want to know how beautiful a white lady is? Like, how long would it take for them to end up on like a milk carton or something?
Yep.
Like, he was so goddamn funny. Sam Kinison, another guy where that might be more like an eclectic taste, but so funny.
The Rogan guy. Rogan's obsessed with Kennison.
Makes-
Yeah, Kennison was a legend.
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, the go where the food is. We're just starving here. But like
I think Rogan's bit is based on Sam Kinison, just the screaming and stuff.
Yeah.
Bargatze, we talked about at length. And he's becoming like the new guy. Something he made like $80 million last year or something like that. Like he's becoming that guy. And maybe partially because he's pretty G-rated for the most
He's
part.
pretty clean.
A pretty clean guy. Dane Cook needed to be mentioned at
Oh,
least.
boy.
Because Dane Cook, you want to talk about a guy that had a fucking stranglehold on the entire
The super middle finger.
like
Remember that?
we were talking about it before. The only thing quoted more than Borat or at the same level of as Borat was Dane Cook specials growing up.
Yep.
Everybody talked about Dane Cook all the time. And obviously it hasn't really kept up. He's had all the whatever issues and all that shit. But man, during that one era, unbelievable. Mike Birbiglia, who we
Oh, nice.
mentioned earlier, made it on here too. And lastly, Sebastian Maniscalco, who is
I would put Tom Segura in this group too.
you could throw him in here.
I
Would he not be? Yeah, he wasn't included in the first
He
place.
wasn't in the main one because
He would be in there. Yeah.
yeah. So I almost forgot.
I think there's one comedian in that stands out above all others.
Well, you could vote first.
It's Bargatze. I said there's only one comedian I've seen that makes me laugh harder than Shane. It's Nate Bargatze. There's a reason he is becoming a household name little by. I mean, he just did like the golf thing with like Barkley and all of them. He has a CBS Christmas special this week. He is a clean comic, which he does it perfectly. It feels like they sat down in a boardroom and they had to come up like with an algorithm to build like the perfect next thing in comedy. and Nate Bargatze popped out. He's
Clean wife guy.
He's A+. I think he's in that list you gave. He's in a tier of his own, in my opinion.
Robbie.
I would go Birbiglia. As I mentioned before, he would round out my like trilogy of favorite comedians. Discovered him when he did Sleepwalk with Me, I think the movie, and then went back and watched, this Sleepwalk with Me, the special. My Girlfriend's Boyfriend is such a funny special. I think The Old Man in the Pool was great.
Love that.
He had so many good ones. Me and Trent saw one of them on Broadway. I just love his style. It's so different than any other comedian. The really long, drawn-out stories that sometimes won't even be that funny until the punchline, but when that punchline hits, it feels so much harder. His bit about cursing on The Muppet Show is so fucking funny. Yeah, he's definitely my pick and like one of my favorite comedians in the world.
Can I ask, was Simple Trent a big Jeff Dunham guy?
Definitely.
100%.
No, I don't think he was, but I'll admit I've seen Jeff Dunham live.
Yeah, that's right. But you told me it was.
It was a gift, yeah. It was gifted tickets, but yeah. Listen, I'm not.
Who
gonna
hated
hate,
you that much?
I'm not gonna hate on Jeff Dunham. I'm gonna straight up say it. I thought Jeff Dunham was funny for a long time. Walter the Puppet,
Ahmed the Dead Terrorist,
Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, Peanut, Bubba. He had some good characters.
Yeah, him and Terry Fader make more money than like everyone on this list combined.
Yeah, he sells out arenas.
Dude, they have like residencies in
To
Vegas.
this day, yeah.
Like, it's crazy how well they do. So you're gonna go with Birbiglia.
Birbiglia, yeah.
I enjoy Bargatze's stuff. I think like 2 years ago he followed me on Instagram randomly and then unfollowed me.
Oh, name drop, nice.
No, I think he unfollowed me. I think because I post too many horny things and he's
Probably.
a
He's more of a
comic.
family guy,
So
yeah.
I'm not gonna go with that. Dane Cook, I don't never really watch his stand up. He does low key have I think maybe what I would consider the greatest boob movie of all time in Good Luck Chuck.
Greatest boob movie of all time.
There's a 3-boobed woman in it. At one point they pan to like 20 boobs at once. Good Luck Chuck may be the greatest boob movie ever.
Wow.
But out of respect to the Paisans, I gotta go Sebastian.
After all
Aren't
that,
you embarrassed?
Chipotle.
I like Sebastian. I got a super Italian mom. She loves Sebastian. Italian moms
dude.
love
Last time my buddy was buying tickets for I doubt they'll see this, but he was buying tickets for Christmas for his like sister and his brother-in-law to go to Sebastian at Barclays Center or UBS in Long Island. I was saying to myself, that must be our greatest congregation.
Yeah.
I don't know if there could be a more great
Yes.
congregation
Of
Like, what would be
Italians?
a more congregation than that?
Yeah.
Even like Billy Joel, because there's other people there. It's just Sebastian. I think is just us.
Just the Paisans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
pretty solid actor too. I gotta say.
I
started
like
watching,
Sebastian. I feel like he gets shit on now for being too
like that.
mainstream. I think he's genuinely very funny.
And I actually like that show, Bookie. It's a good
I
show.
was about to say it started Bookie.
Oh, it just came out for the second season. It started last week.
Out of this grouping, like I think a lot of these guys are funnier and they have obviously more sustained success than some of the other people on here. I would go Patrice. I think Patrice has made me laugh more than
Patrice, yeah,
Patrice
it's
especially-
hard to go anyone over Patrice, to be honest, on that list.
so
But
funny. And it's only like I think like two or three specials maybe that I've seen. But man,
Elephant in the Room,
yeah,
Yeah.
Elf in the Room specifically being like the one. He was so damn funny. So I think I would go with Patrice.
Yeah. The joke from Elephant in the Room when they're like, a condom is a woman's responsibility, and it's because women are horny or men are hornier, and like he says like, you see that girl out there covered in trash by the dumpster, and he's like, she's just so cute with the trash on her. Oh, it's so good. Who can you give me the first part of the list again?
Patrice, Sam Kinison, Nate Bargatze, Dane Cook, Mike Birbiglia, Sebastian Maniscalco, Tom Segura.
Yeah, I'm going to go Nate on this. I think what Nate's doing is going to endure. He just is ready for his success. He's ready to churn over a new hour every year, and it's going to just keep getting better and better and keep being universal. And the only threat to his enduring legacy, I guess, would be becoming overexposed and becoming a game show host in the process and stuff like that. But for now,
keep them all foreplay. Am I right?
Yeah.
Those guys will kill any career.
Damn
Yeah.
straight.
I'm kidding.
Jesus.
Any career.
He's amazing. Yeah, Nate, for sure.
Nate.
Yeah, after college, like the year after college, there's a show on Comedy Central called Tough Crowd, Colin Quinn.
Yep.
And it was basically like The View, but awesome. It was like they would just you have the funniest stand-up comics in the world talk about like current events, and it was just the best. And they would all rip on each other. Greg Giraldo was on a ton, and Patrice O'Neal was on a ton. I had never heard of Patrice O'Neal until that show. And then I started like looking at his stand-ups, and I remember just laughing so hard. Patrice O'Neal is like one of the, I don't know if younger people, I'm sure you guys do, but maybe like younger people might not know who he is, but check out if you don't know who he is, check out his YouTube. He's really funny.
I think he's funnier when he would just do O&A and like off the cuff on radio. That's where I know him. I mean, I've seen his stand-up, but I think he was much funnier on O&A, just being just diabolically funny. And then he had a little part on The Office before he died as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so he was crossing.
He was great off the cuff on Tough Crowd too. Like, but he also had the ability to also, I think, still be really funny.
What year was Tough Crowd? I remember watching it, but I was too young. I was too young to understand it.
02, 03, 04. Like I just got out of college.
I'm saying
03, 04, I think.
I think younger people do sort of know Patrice. I feel like comedians have done a very good job of keeping him alive.
Yeah, and Greg Giraldo too is another guy who's like really funny.
He's one I really wanted to include here. It's just
almost like a more modern Carlin.
I would put Gary Gulman on this list too.
Oh, I love Gary Gulman.
Really
Wasn't Gary Gulman one of the like first comedians you met? Am I right about that?
Yeah, he did
Barstool Breakfast.
Yeah. The second stand-up show I ever did in Boston.
I remember that. I remember you telling him that on Barstool Breakfast. I still
remember a joke he told, which was that he said it was in February, and he goes, I was down at the Dunkin' Donuts down there, and they had a sign out that said February is Chocolate Lovers Month. I'm pretty sure they prefer Black History Month.
I love his Karate Kid bit.
Yeah.
If do right, no can defend. He's like, you telegraph it. If do right, can defend. Yeah.
He does the seller a lot, and it's kind of a nice thing. He does it so much where like him and Jim Norton, I feel like I've seen like, I don't know, 20 times.
Yeah.
They always make me laugh. Those guys always.
Great Depression, great special.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So you're going with Patrice.
Yeah.
So that means that we are tied between Patrice and Nate Bargatze. So, Jason, are you familiar enough with these two? If not, we could probably get Security Dan. I feel like he's on top of this stuff.
I mean, I recognize one name. So, I mean, you can play the card that one guy is just that much bigger that I recognize the name Patrice O'Neal.
Wow.
You recognize Patrice over Nate Bargatze?
Nate Bargatze has a billboard at MSG right now.
Patrice has been around for a long time. I mean,
fair enough.
Been gone for a long time, but he's
got a benefit for as long as he's been gone to. They do a show for him every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So are we going with Patrice there?
I feel like we should get someone that knows both. Does that make sense?
We asked the two people that didn't have their vote counted because it was a tie.
Yeah. We could split the vote.
Sorry,
Patrice and Bargatze.
I would go Patrice.
I would also go Patrice.
Wow.
Like I remember Patrice and like Giraldo from early like Comedy Central roast when I was a kid. I really liked them.
So good.
So Patrice O'Neal is going up against our number 2 seed, Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
This
I love you guys. I got to jump.
Yep.
So good luck the rest of the way. Thank you for having me.
Would you take between these two?
Between Patrice and Chappelle?
Yeah.
I think Chappelle's the greatest of all time.
Of all time?
Yeah, he's not my favorite of all time, but I think he's the best ever.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Francis, it was an honor having one of the actual 250 on the Comedian podcast. Shout out Francis. And if it were up to me, he would win the bracket today.
Wow, what a guy. Robbie Fox.
You had a...
We're making Tupacs today.
See ya.
Francis had a Harvey Weinstein joke in one of his specials that made me die laughing.
Oh, amazing. It was a great song. Yeah. Now that he's out of the room, we could glaze him a little bit. Genuinely awesome comedian. If you could see Francis live,
I agree.
His stand-up, his entire bit, his act, whatever you want to call it, is so good. We saw him before WrestleMania. Man, Philly, you weren't there actually yet.
I was not.
But oh my God, killer. Absolute murderer.
Saw him in Chicago, and the guy who I forget who was open for him. It was pretty cold room.
Connor Mook.
It was not Connor. It was a while ago.
It was years ago. I was with you.
Yeah, exactly. It was for Star Wars Celebration. Yep. The guy opened for him. It was kind of cold room, and then like he came in and just crushed it.
Yeah, Francis is awesome.
You know how hard it is to get on the comedies, like to be in.
I know.
On that roster.
Yeah.
Cellar and like.
He was being humble. I think he's been on fucking Comedy Cellar shows with Seinfeld.
Yeah.
We were talking about that before, and he was just being nice and humble about it. You know?
He's like.
He's been on shows where they're like, hey, Seinfeld's going to drop in right before you. And he's got to be like, all right, cool, I'll follow that.
Yeah. Yes. Francis is like a very
he's a legit comedian.
So Dave Chappelle versus Patrice O'Neal, Klemmer.
Yeah, I love Patrice, but Dave Chappelle, I definitely echo a lot of things Francis said where he might be the greatest ever to do it. And think about how long he's been doing it for too.
Long time.
And I think he's still really funny. I know some people don't like him and or feel he lost his fastball a little bit, but I think he's lost his fastball a lot less than Chris Rock has. So I'm gonna go with Dave Chappelle here. I think Dave Chappelle is about as good as it gets.
I would go with Chappelle as well. I think that he had a special like right after, because every comedian I feel like had their cancel culture like special that came out, like it was required of them to make one. He had that one, which I didn't like, and then the one after that I thought was way better, but when everyone was bitching about the trans stuff, that one was very good, and then the one after that also I thought was very good. So I would go with Dave Chappelle, and obviously all stuff pre that. Skinny Chappelle was so funny.
Easy Chappelle, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to beat.
Love Patrice. The body of work, it's got to be Chappelle.
Yeah, Nate.
It's Chappelle by a lot.
Yeah, it's
It's
by a
Chappelle.
significant
I mean, I'm. This is almost like the Chris Rock one to me. That I was so stunned that people. I think Chappelle and Chris Rock, they're almost too good for this branch.
Chappelle's like
They should do like a Elton John, Billy Joel tour.
The two of them.
Should, yes.
That'd be good.
Wait, what was the Chris Rock documentary? Who was he with for that?
oh yeah, I forgot about
They
that.
did do a little documentary. I think it was.
Yeah,
them too,
was it them? I think it was them
it
too.
was
It was Chappelle and Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they did do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I watched it like a year ago. It came out probably.
I remember watching something
So
like
you suggested they should do something they've already done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You loved it
they're
so much.
friends.
The
I'm
first
saying they should do
parallel,
a
alright.
fucking tour.
All right.
I was watching something. Apparently, Chris Rock, like his brother Tony Rock, is also like an aspiring comedian.
Yeah, he has a big part of the documentary.
Chris Rock refuses to put him on. Like,
That was a major storyline of the documentary.
Chris Rock refuses to help his brother in any way
Right.
in the comedic world at all.
I
Like,
thought the documentary was about hair.
There is a documentary
different thing, I think.
about. It's almost like a road to WrestleMania type thing where it follows Chris Rock, as he's
For a special?
before his stand-up gig at Barclays.
You could think of a different documentary.
there is
Didn't he make a documentary about hair?
He did make a
Yes.
Like
documentary.
an Oscar nominated, like
different
yeah.
No, there's one about. I think it's on Netflix. It's just about Chris Rock leading up, and it like follows him for like a week
Okay.
leading up to his show.
I think the one you're talking about, I think was like he made
And
for his
spoiler,
daughter.
Yeah.
spoiler.
Yeah.
Tony Rock is involved with that storyline of he wants.
Tony Rock sounds like a fake guy.
It does sound like a fake.
I believe he
Hey,
also
Tony
has a
Rock.
nephew Jordan Rock that does comedy as well.
Does he?
It might be Tony's son. I think he had a small part in like Love on Netflix or something.
All right.
And I remember watching, like, I think it was Tony Rock on like a podcast or something, and he was
I
like,
think I watched that shit.
"Yeah, like my brother refuses to put me in any movies. He wouldn't put me in anything." Like I was like, yeah, "Come on, I'm trying to eat here. Like,
Damn.
can you help me?"
Tom Hanks is the opposite, puts his brother on, and that Tom Hanks' brother is the exact same voice as him.
His voice replica.
So he does the voice work for Woody and all the toys and video games and stuff.
If I remember correctly, in T2, this also happened with Linda
Hamilton?
Linda
Hamilton has a twin
She has a
sister.
twin. Yes, she does.
In this,
Oh.
you know the scene where they like Arnold is like getting worked on in the mirror?
Yep.
So that's just like two separate things, and it's Linda's twin on one side and her on the other.
Ah.
Rotate around. It's just it looks like you're going into the mirror, but it's not because it's just her twin.
Pretty interesting.
And also, I think
Ron Howard puts his brother in.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's also I think actually very good in his
He's also a good actor. Yeah.
Richie Cunningham.
yeah.
You're just talking about the Wonder Years, and I keep calling it Wonder Years. The Happy Days. Christmas
Happy
special.
days.
I think what's his name also? Who's the guy?
Henry Winkler.
Vin Diesel has a twin brother with hair.
Oh.
Always forget about that one. Twin brother with a full head of hair.
Mark Sinclair.
Which, by the way, is such a fucking good actor name.
It's my cousin's
Wait,
name.
Vin Diesel's real
really?
name
No, yeah.
is Mark Sinclair.
That's Vin Diesel's real name.
But Vin Diesel, that's cool.
Vin
Mark
Diesel's
Sinclair
way
is like the
better.
most classic actor
Oh,
name.
Vin Diesel? Vin Diesel?
Dude, that's like
That's awesome.
that's like a wrestler name.
That's a
That's
great
like-
name.
It's an awesome name, dude.
I'm not saying it's not an awesome name, but as far as like he wanted to be like, hey, he was in drama school, like, oh shit, he wanted to be a classical. You want to be
Mark
an actor?
Sinclair is a CPA. Vin Diesel.
No, like John Smith is a CPA.
No, that's an average name.
That's what I'm saying. Mark Sinclair is an above average
No,
name.
it was
Balls raised
CPA
his
is
hand.
above average.
Balls raised his
Hey,
hand.
He raised
I
his
just got
hand.
to clarify. The fucking documentary was Kevin Hart and Chris Rock, and not
Kevin Hart and Chris
Chappelle and
Rock,
Chris
not
Rock.
Chappelle.
So, fuck you.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was
we
Kevin
were-
Hart. I was too afraid to say. I think it's Kevin Hart.
I wasn't
So
adamantly.
they should go on a tour together, which they haven't done.
It would be a good
Glenny.
tour.
Okay.
Tell him, Glenny.
Okay.
It's not like
They
we
would be a
moved
good
on
combo.
5 minutes.
Yeah,
ago.
I just wanted to clarify.
I don't even think anyone was
For
calling.
bringing us
Wanted to
back to the
clarify.
convo.
Nobody was calling anybody an idiot or anything.
I'm team balls this one. Good for you, Glenny.
Okay, good documentary, nevertheless.
All right. And Chris Rock and Chappelle should do a tour together.
Yeah.
Unless they have already. In that case, don't correct us. Before we get to the playoffs, let's talk about Factor. Notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't. Power through the busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner to anything in between, Factor's easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like your routine or mixing things up, they have you covered with 35 different delicious meals every week, or 35 different delicious, options, and over 60 additional convenience options that can help you, like keto cookies, pressed juices, and smoothies. I mentioned every time we do a Factor ad, I don't know how the smoothies work because they are. Smoothies in my brain are a thing that should be like expire within the hour. Like that should not be good anymore after that. You get them out of the container. It tastes like someone just blended it right in front of your face. Same thing with the meals. 2 minutes 30 in the microwave. Tastes like someone just cooked it right in front of you. Factor lets you do you. Choose 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, and avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/LCB50 and use code 50LCB. Factormeals.com/50LCB and use code 50LCB to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50LCB at factormeals.com/50LCB to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping when you get your subscription is still active. They swapped the code on me. It used to be LCB50 and they switched it to 50.
I like to change it up sometimes.
Yeah.
Make sure you're still reading.
Yeah, make sure I'm still checking it out. Shout out to Factor. Love those guys. All right, so now we have our playoffs. First matchup, John Mulaney versus Rodney Dangerfield. Whew. Nate, you're up first. Mulaney versus Dangerfield. You're going to do the same thing. People are going to get pissed. They're going to be pissed regardless. You got to just accept it.
It's John Mulaney. It's John Mulaney. It's like Klemmer was on, like said, if I had to pick a stand-up for a desert island, and that's the way I'm looking at this. Like, I don't care about cultural impact at the moment. John Mulaney has made me laugh maybe more than 99% of humans alive, and especially more than Dangerfield. Not saying that he's not funny, just different eras, different times. It's Mulaney.
Like I said last round about Dangerfield, I kind of missed out on him, especially as a stand-up. Like my exposure to him is more as an actor, so I'd go Mulaney for sure.
Mulaney?
Yeah, I've just watched more Mulaney in my life, and once again, Ray Dangerfield seems like he'd be probably the better guy to hang out and have dinner with. But I'm gonna go Mulaney just because he's made me laugh more. Yeah.
I'll dissent for Mulaney already won. I would go Dangerfield just because Dangerfield makes you laugh every time. Every new special, I feel like I find a new set of him on a show from like fucking 70s, 80s, or whatever, and it makes you die laughing. I guess mostly 80s, but Dangerfield.
It would take a really great modern comedian to not take Rodney Dangerfield, but John Mulaney is that comedian. John Mulaney is that funny. Like, I gotta go. John Mulaney is my favorite of the modern era.
Mulaney is gonna move on. On the top part, we have Louis C.K. versus Norm Macdonald. Oh, it's brutal.
This is tough. I say modern era, but like I don't know if I count Louis as modern era, but like Louis and John Mulaney would be. That's hopefully I don't know. I'm going Norm. Norm Macdonald is my 1-1. There's no greater comic. No comic has made me laugh more in person than Norm, and I just love Norm. The only thing I don't love that Norm did, I didn't love the autobiography that much. It was kind of fake, whatever you want to call that.
Experimental.
Yeah, it wasn't. But other than that, Norm Macdonald is everything to me. Comedy.
I think between these two, I associate Louis more with stand-up, and every stand-up special I've seen of his has been extremely funny. Like I haven't watched one where I'm like, oh, he lost his fastball, he doesn't get it. Like it's new and it's good every time I watch it. And I have to go with Louis, and gotta say, very funny in person. When I worked on Louis as a grip for a while, very fun guy. Glenny.
This is weird for me because I feel weird saying it because I'm on a stand-up comedy bracket. But I haven't really watched enough Louis C.K. To really comment on this and pick him over Norm.
I would say that's crazy.
I haven't. I'm sorry.
It's your Christmas homework.
Yeah, it is so funny.
I think that's
clarified on Culture Pig.
I'm gonna go with Norm.
You're gonna go with Norm.
I'm also gonna go with Norm.
Y'all are crazy.
That means Norm's gonna win, but
y'all are crazy. Louis C.K. is maybe the best comic of our generation.
I think Norm Macdonald's the best comic ever.
The best comic of all time.
Yeah, like I like Norm in Clips and in Dirty Work, phenomenal film. Weekend Update, but Louis C.K. stand up is one of a kind.
Kind of where I landed.
Yeah, he's just different.
Like body of work, if you're like, hey, I'm erasing this person's existence from human history,
I would erase Louis C.K.
I would erase Louis C.K. and keep Norm. But if you're saying just stand up,
I would still like Louis season 3. You know how he has like the interstitials where he does the stand up. Yeah. So I was at the Comedy Cellar for those. He does all of them at once, so I got to sit through all, which is great. And he's amazing. And I've seen him at Cellar a bunch of times. I saw him at Caroline's. Very funny. Norm is still to me funnier.
You think next level for? Okay.
I just never laughed harder. And this is saying like A+ versus A. Like Louis C.K. is amazing.
Splitting hairs, yeah.
Like there's no wrong answer here, but for me, like I disagree. Like Nate thinks we're crazy. I don't think you're crazy either way. I think either way is right, but for me, it's Norm.
And also, like Francis said earlier, I bet almost more comics would say their favorite comic is Norm over.
I think you're right.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's like the comic, and it's so hard to do this. Oh, you don't think Norm's no? I think he's one of the funniest humans of all time. Obviously,
Yeah.
Relative,
but
yeah.
both are though.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
think
why
both
this is
are.
impossibly
So
hard.
You said it was crazy. That's why I'm putting the back on you on that.
I think there's like 3 or 4 comics I put above everybody else. It's Chappelle, Rock, Louis. Like that's like 3 of the 4. That's just
I think he's saying in the context of stand-up.
Just
Very
stand-ups.
subjective, though.
I know that I know.
Yeah, I'm saying stand up specifically. Norm is that funny.
Yeah. So Norm versus John Mulaney.
Mulaney.
Mulaney over Norm. Wow.
Yeah, I feel like now it's gonna be a clean sweep of Norm.
I love Norm, but I would also go Mulaney.
This is crazy.
Yeah, here I would go Mulaney
All
for
right.
sure.
I echo Bob. I'm going Mulaney.
Mulaney, just an instant win. I
It's
would
the beauty of a bracket.
Yeah.
I would have picked. I think Norm because it's just it's a full body of work thing. You know what I mean? And like I feel like Mulaney's had 2 specials that I really liked, like really liked, and then the rest have been like, okay, yeah, it's good. And
You
Norm,
heard some good stuff on SNL.
I don't think I've ever had a Norm stand-up bit, whether it's like a set on a late night or whatever. There's none that I've watched that I haven't laughed, and there's been plenty of John Mulaney jokes within his stand-up that I haven't totally gelled with. Clemmer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm upset because Norm's like my favorite of all time, but I mean, Mulaney's is certainly a perfect word, the adversary to lose to. So once again, there's no real wrong answer. It's Norm for me, but Mulaney's a fine choice.
Mulaney moves on. Now we have Bill Burr versus Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, this is Eddie Murphy. Like, you know how we talked about like how used to the CDs? So when I was in grammar school is when these Raw and Delirious came out, and we would pass around the cassette tapes, the plastic.
Oh, yeah.
And we passed because it was kind of off. You know, it was like, oh, this is kind of
R-rated, yeah.
Yeah, like this.
Definitely.
You know, and
Contraband.
some people like my parents didn't care, but other parents did. So like we would like swap out the cassettes, and every week someone else had the cassette.
Yeah.
And it was that great. Yeah, Eddie Murphy. This is Bill Burr is a very good comic. Eddie Murphy is like an all-time great to me.
Yeah, we talked a lot about how the Eddie Murphy, like if he stuck with stand-up, he'd be clearly like probably like the 1-1 in this entire thing. I think his stand-up to me is funny, and Bill Burr's had misses. Like he's had spin-off specials where I don't think they were very funny. Eddie Murphy, everyone I've seen has been extremely funny, so I gotta go Eddie Murphy. Eddie's gonna win, but
I would have went Burr.
you would have went Burr.
Yeah.
Eddie. I think I voted against Burr in round 1.
Mm-hmm.
Burr would probably
Wait,
be
who did
my
I
one.
vote against Burr round 1 with?
Against George Carlin.
Oh wow.
You're looking back on that.
No. It's like I think Carlin could have won that, and then
Even if Carlin won, though, I think Eddie would have beat Carlin.
I would have taken Eddie
Which
here.
is fair.
yeah, I would have too.
I would have went.
Dave Chappelle versus Steve Martin.
Chappelle by 1,000 million bazillions.
I'm so over the Steve Martin thing. I'm so happy Chappelle's
I
here.
really like Steve Martin, but Chappelle by a
I like Steve
billion.
Martin a lot too.
No, we've been shocked by a lot of opinions. The Steve Martin worship on this podcast.
He's unbelievable.
That's the one that kind of has taken me the most off
That tells
guard.
me you
To
haven't
watch
seen his
like
stand-up
2
then.
minutes. of
I
Steve
have.
yeah.
I don't put him in that upper echelon like I do with others. I don't
Put
know.
him near Chris Rock is like, I don't know. Continue. It's beautiful
I
bracket.
look at Steve Martin more of an actor.
Yes.
Well, because he quit stand-up.
Yeah, he stopped doing it.
Right,
for-
but I
He retired because he could only play stadiums and he couldn't connect with the audience anymore.
didn't like Eddie Murphy. I look at as just an all-time comedian, even though he hasn't really done stand-up in 30 years.
like 40 years.
That's just your perception. I mean, I don't know how.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I mean,
Yeah, I would pick Chappelle here too.
yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
I would go Chappelle here too. But once again, I mean, this is much close. I'm only fighting that this is closer than people
Well,
are saying
let's
it is.
say,
It
yeah.
really is. But Chappelle is my vote as well. Chappelle's that great, but Steve Martin's really good.
I mean, Chappelle talking about his like white friend Chip. Like I could,
Oh, yeah.
I could watch
Chip,
that.
no, Chip.
Yeah, like I could watch that on replay. on
Cheaper by the
repeat.
dozen, dude.
Cheaper by the Dozen's a great movie.
I do love Cheaper by the dozen.
Fantastic movie.
Really sad. The frog dies.
The frog, yeah, Beans was the kid's
Yeah.
name, right? And not, but
So
it wasn't
sad.
Beans from. But although that Beans was in the movie, I'm pretty sure he was their neighbor.
Also,
Yeah, I think
Steven's
you're
Beans.
right.
can you just put a still shot or maybe like a quick video of what Chappelle's wearing? Like just like the baggiest clothes.
Oh, in the early 2000s ones, yeah.
Just the best.
Chappelle versus Eddie Murphy.
Also, Chappelle has invented the banging the microphone on the knee
Did
move,
yeah, that was his little.
which cannot be overlooked.
Chappelle versus Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Wait, is this Final Four?
This is to go into the finals versus Mulaney.
Who did Mulaney go against?
Mulaney beat Norm. Mulaney beat Rodney Dangerfield.
It feels like we did two sides of the bracket.
Mulaney beat
Like black
Richard
and white,
Pryor.
you're saying?
It is.
One side was Mulaney versus McDonald, and the side was Chappelle against Eddie.
I was worried about that.
Yeah, there was almost entirely. Oh, okay, no, Richard Pryor was on the other side. Okay, yeah, but it is the white.
By the way, you never. Speaking of that, you never. And I understand there's reasons, but like Bill Cosby, we should at least he should have been in the playing game.
Knowledge.
Like,
Let's
no, Bill Cosby was.
This is like wrestling fans who were like, well, Chris Benoit had some good matches.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say Bill Cosby was the.
He wasn't all. He was a great.
Like he was the first one to really sell like records, like to that level, like like to.
Well, then let's put some credit where credit's due on the biggest comedian in terms of cassette sales of all time, which is who?
Biggest comedian.
Oh, Dice.
So,
Oh, we never mentioned Dice.
The Dice Man can be included, but that's
Oh,
not.
why would I know?
Jeff Foxworthy.
Oh.
Jeff Foxworthy.
Here's your sign.
If I was gonna pick anyone from that crew, it would be like Ron White or Engvall or like one of those guys. I would not.
Not Larry the Cable Guy.
You
Larry
can't
the Cable
compare Bill Cosby. No, Bill Cosby, not a good person. Not saying that, but Bill Cosby's comedy was revolutionary.
was all that.
Changed the game. Jeff Foxworthy's a hack. Like the
I
Hack?
hack. Like it might be a redneck if. Like I mean,
I
what are we
think
doing
the
here?
Blue Collar Comedy Tour did something like they just sold out arenas for 2 or 3 years straight.
Yeah.
Just a juggernaut of comedy.
in like Biloxi, Mississippi.
Just an absolute juggernaut.
Like Tater or whatever, or the fuck.
Yeah, dude.
Tater.
I might go home and watch that. Like I remember we I don't know, 13 years old at a family function, maybe a wedding, and we all just piled into one room around the one person who had a laptop at the time, and we were just
watching it.
watching Blue Collar Comedy Tour.
I'm not saying that we're not funny or anything. It's just like in this concept, in this scope, it's not gonna make it. And the same thing with Bill Cosby. Like that's not.
I will say this, every stand-up you like listening to grew up on Bill Cosby.
Worshiping like Bill Cosby.
Not the Cosby Show. I mean his stand-up stuff.
Yes.
I mean that's just.
You're right. We should have acknowledged that, but it's not that fun to talk about, to be honest.
It is, well, I know. It's just,
Whole-
still
the whole-
happened.
It's the rape thing.
I get it. It still happened though. So it's
Chappelle versus Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, it's only because Eddie Murphy had really two major specials, and Chappelle has just a giant body of work. So Chappelle.
Gotta go Chappelle for this.
Both great.
Dice, first comedian to sell out MSG.
And he
Was
did
he?
it 2 nights in a
Nights
row,
in a
I
row.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, Dice should have been probably on here too.
You know
You
another
want to talk about like hacky-ish stuff.
Hickory dickory.
no, but he was
cock.
he was mocking it.
Yeah.
That
This
was,
chick was sucking my cock.
that's satire. Like he was obviously fucking
Good
around.
stuff.
Like
It's
that's-
good stuff.
It's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
You know
Dice
what,
is
so
funny.
Entourage.
Another
Dice is very funny.
Another comedian
Good
that sold
acting
out
too, though.
MSG that wasn't even in a playing game. Aziz.
We mentioned Aziz before. That's just one like in this scope. Who
Yeah,
does Aziz
he wouldn't
beat?
be mentioned.
You know what I mean?
It's just he was that massive of a comedian.
I went to watch him at MSG. He was a star.
Did you actually?
Yeah, he was amazing.
I also think
a good bit. Yeah,
something's
they're a good
happening-
stand-up special.
Something's happening with MSG though.
You think it's
Everyone
not
can sell at
Everyone's
MSG. I
playing
know. It's
MSG.
weird. Like, yeah, bands you've never
Growing
heard
up,
of
I
could sell
thought you needed
out.
to be like Justin Timberlake.
But now with
now like fucking
social
state champs
media
and
these
put our
days.
soda on
Yeah,
MSG.
like
Whoa, whoa, what the fuck? He made a state
I
champ
just saw you guys
dig. What the fuck?
podcast.
Wow.
even
Shit.
all-time low can
What
do
the
it now.
fuck, bro?
It seems like everyone's selling MSG.
Everyone can sell it. I didn't appreciate the dig at one of my favorite bands.
Sorry.
A comedian who's big on like TikTok, like a Matt Rife,
He
can
did
now
just sell out 2
that's
nights in a row.
That's what I'm saying. So you don't have to be a great comedian to sell out MSG.
You just need to like market yourself well.
Yeah,
like, basically.
and Rife is. I mean, I can't get through.
There's something about since COVID, everyone's playing MSG.
It does seem
COVID ruined it. COVID ruined Madison Square Garden.
They did.
Parcel ruined everything.
Chappelle versus Eddie Murphy.
Chappelle.
Chappelle.
Easy Chappelle. Because of what Klemmer said. It's the longevity. Like, at their peak, they're very neck and neck.
Now it's tough.
Yes.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy has like 18 children, right? Not that that plays any
Not a lot of
bearing here,
kids, I
but he
believe.
does, right? If I'm
I
right.
believe he has a lot of kids.
Now, can I include Shrek in Eddie Murphy's?
Donkey.
It's not
You
stand
do
up.
a good Shrek. Give us a little Shrek.
I am no, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
I am an ogre.
There it is.
Donkey.
That's the clip.
eating waffles. What does he say?
And in the morning, I'm making waffles.
Yeah, that was it. So
Donkey is fucking legendary.
It's funny.
he fucks the dragon.
I mean, Nutty Professor.
Very-
Holy moly.
At the time, very
Oh,
funny.
let's
At the
Haunted
time, when you're a
Mansion.
kid watching
Well,
Nutty
not-
Professor,
yeah,
that's
when
great.
you're a child, yes. Yeah, so,
Coming to America.
Coming America is just flat out funny movie. Beverly Hills Cop is a good movie. Coming
yeah.
America, are good. So like I don't know, like
Ooh, you know another
mention
comedian.
the actual good movies first.
comedian that could have been not just a play-in game. Cat Williams.
He was another one. When somebody mentioned him, I was like, I got to include him into the plan. I should have.
I wrote him. Pimp Chronicles with the green jacket.
Chronicles,
that might be my favorite my favorite special ever.
That's one special though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
like, really that one special, Vince.
He's
but
so funny.
I feel like when everyone thinks of Cat Williams, I think of the green.
I think of that, and I think of that radio appearance he did where you just destroyed that woman's life. You've ever seen that? Where she's like trying to make fun of him, like, oh, that hair's fake. And he's like, run your gnarled fingers through this. It's like, it's 18 inches, no perm. He's so fucking funny.
Speaking of, boys, I have to run to a train.
Hit the last one.
Eddie would be
Chappelle
my...
versus
Chappelle.
Chappelle versus Mulaney.
Yes, Chappelle.
One for Chappelle.
Wow.
Nate.
This is the finals.
Chappelle versus Mulaney.
Jeez Louise. Outside of Rock, like, two of the most influential comedians on me, for sure. It's Chappelle.
I think it's Chappelle.
It's Chappelle. It'd be very difficult for me to pick Mulaney over Chappelle because, again, Chappelle, I think, has, like, at least off the top of my head that I could think of, like 4 or 5 specials where I was like, holy shit, that's really good. Mulaney has, like, 2?
3, yeah.
I think he's got 3. Yeah.
2, max 3. Chappelle has more.
Yeah.
So I would have to go. And Chappelle's just significantly more influential. You know what I mean?
Can I say something? I would have taken Rock over Chappelle.
You're taking Chris Rock over Chappelle?
Yeah.
I think that's a little crazy.
I would vote for Chris Rock to win.
I'd go with Mulaney here, but I'm going to lose.
You go with Mulaney over Dave Chappelle?
Yeah, but it's very close, and it's like...
Why is that?
Mulaney makes me laugh harder. It's like... Chappelle is more...
His newer stuff is translated away from it.
I just think, like I said, New in Town might be my favorite comedy album ever. So, like, that, like... But we're comparing, like, Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle. Like, all right, they're both awesome. So, like, which one's more awesomer? Like,
See, Chappelle, I could take points away because I don't love that now it's almost like he's moved away from making jokes. He just says stuff.
Says stories.
Yeah.
Storyteller.
He just goes,
Modern Chappelle is
he just
phenomenal.
goes, trans people. And like,
I don't think that's what he...
you know.
I think
he's become more
a bit more intelligent than that with it.
It was an exaggeration.
I know, but like, I think that's a shorthand. And I hear you guys like...
I think he takes liberties with being Dave Chappelle now, where, like, you know, the thing about Steve Martin, one of the things he says about why he stopped doing stand-up is people would laugh and cheer and clap no matter what he said, because it was just like, that's Steve Martin, we're gonna laugh. And it, like, he almost, like, he didn't like that. He didn't have to work for the laughs anymore. I think Chappelle now is relying too much on the fact he's Chappelle.
He does go out and do like 3-hour sets, blackout drunk, and just like mumbles.
Hasn't he done that for a long time?
I think it's becoming like a regular thing now.
And you can't have phones out at his shows, so he just chain smokes and is blacked out. Like, there's people who have seen him who are like, he was god awful because he was just blacked out.
Yeah. Here. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as taped specials, good shit.
Oh, great. Yeah. He's the GOAT.
Yeah. So that means the winner of this bracket, episode 156, is Dave Chappelle. I think
It's a worthy.
Dave.
That's
very worthy.
That's a fine.
Yeah.
Very, very worthy winner.
You should send him a plaque or one of those little trophies you got.
Yeah. We have no episode next week, but we'll see you guys back in the new year. Hope you guys, all the stories, anyone listening to the bracket, have a great holiday, whatever you celebrate. See you guys next year.